By the power vested in me, I hereby constitute this assembly as a legal congregation of the University of Pretoria. During this assembly, degrees with all associated rights and privileges will be conferred on the candidates whose names appear in the program. Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we now request you to join us in silent prayer or meditation to give thanks for the achievements of our students. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to welcome you all to this graduation. I wish to welcome in particular the Dean of the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences, Professor E. Lutz, the Dean of the Gordon Institute of Business Science, Professor Klein, the Deputy Dean of Economic and Management Sciences, Professor J.M. Hupla, the Director Department Enrollment and Student Administration, Ms. Maybeck, and Director Academic Programs, Professor L. Whitaker, Director Doctorate Program, Professor H. Barnard, and the former Chairman of the University of Pretoria Council, Dr. V. Hesse and his wife. You are all welcome. I wish also to welcome the chairpersons of schools, heads of departments, directors, and honorary professors and other lecturers and their spouses present, supervisors, co-supervisors, and external examiners of the doctorate students, the representative of the Student Representative Council will present the SRC academic honorary colors. All spouses, parents, and other parties present, as well as dignitaries that we may not be aware of. We are all welcome. We are exceedingly pleased that you have taken the time to join us at this very important ceremony. I wish to, in particular, welcome the graduates today and to share with them a short message in this very important day in their careers. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege once more to congratulate all the graduates at this spring graduation ceremony. I salute you for valuing knowledge and investing your prime years in acquiring expertise in your fields of interest and specialization. Simultaneously, I congratulate the faculty members and the executive management for their outstanding achievement in a very challenging year. As the community of the University of Pretoria, we thank all the parents, relatives, friends, and all benefactors for their support of the graduates over the years. May today, beginning with this ceremony, be a joyous and memorable celebration for us all, and of an exciting and fulfilling new future for the graduates. As we celebrate your achievements today, we should highlight the fact that the development of the intellect and skillful application of the products of the intellect to craft solutions that improve our lives are the key determinants of human progress. It is through a focus on these two that individuals and nations extricate themselves out of backwardness, poverty, and feelings of inadequacy and inferiority. Grasping this truth is crucial in determining whether individuals and nations succeed or fail. Failure to appreciate This leads to policies, investments, and interventions that produce suboptimal outcomes, which never succeed in building nations that are characterized by resilience, self-confidence, cohesion, high productivity, and broad-based economic participation and shared prosperity. It is for these reasons that we cannot overemphasize the vital role of high-quality, relevant education as a means of developing the intellect and empowering the participants with the capabilities to craft the solutions that are essential in order to forge ahead as a united people with a shared ambition. Unfortunately, what I've highlighted as a simple truth is not that simple to most politicians and many of our leaders, both in South Africa and in other previously colonized countries that are still engulfed in underdevelopment and poverty. They tend to believe that by focusing primarily on addressing dispossession and economic exclusion caused by colonialism and apartheid in our case, as well as improving policy conditions just for the enclave formal economy that characterize our underdeveloped countries. They believe that by simply doing these things primarily, inclusive prosperity will follow. They do not see education as the most effective lever for transformation, but only as a social service to be provided. Hence, the absence of radical thinking and plans to transform education in the narratives of our leading political parties. I believe that this is being short-sighted in the extreme and blind to the history of socio-economic progress post the Second World War. Nations that have managed to overcome underdevelopment and to join the ranks of the developed countries are those who prioritized education as well as scientific and technological progress. Can we get united as a nation behind education and science and technology as the anchors that will deliver us from the scourges of poverty, unemployment, and national polarization? Can the experience that you have had as students at the University of Pretoria, living together, working together, learning together, singing and dancing together, as South Africans and Africans from the rest of the continent, inspire you to embrace each other as brothers and sisters who are bound together by destiny to make Africa great? Can we forge a common front that says education and scientific and technological advancement are crucial to our common future? Therefore, we should unite and defend them and advance them for the good of us all. And we should not allow frustration and anger caused by injustices of the past and the bad conduct of our current politicians to lead us to destructive behavior. Seeing such a large number of PhDs graduating today gives us a lot of hope. Attaining high-level qualifications that are at the same standard as similar qualifications in developed countries boosts our confidence to succeed as a nation and continent, despite what happened in the past. I encourage you to go out with confidence and be active in advancing knowledge and finding scientific solutions to the challenges we face as a people. Be confident and bold, and collaborate with colleagues in other universities in Africa and the rest of the world. The University of Pretoria is a world-class institution. You should have no doubt about your competencies. Yes, having come this far is proof that you value education and you know that it is the development of the intellect and skillful application of its products that drives human progress. Go out and be ambassadors of this message and role models in your own circles, be it politics, business, research, education, etc. That's my words of encouragement and saying that there are great expectations. You have been well equipped now. It's time for you to go out and make your valuable contribution in taking us forward. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure now once more to congratulate all the graduates and their faculties, and say again another big thank you to the parents, relatives, friends, and benefactors. May we give the graduates a big round of applause. We're now going to proceed with the graduation. I now request the Dean and supervisors to introduce to me the candidates present whose names appear on the program.
Chancellor, the supervisors will now introduce the doctoral candidates.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Richard Mduduzi Mtetwa, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Administration with a thesis titled Evaluating the Implementation of the Child Support Grant in South Africa, the case of KwaZulu-Natal, prepared under my supervision. The promovendus investigated the complexities of policy implementation and the factors that affect implementation. Interviews were conducted as part of the mixed method approach for the research with officials from the Department of Social Development and the South African Social Security Agency, responsible for distributing more than 2 million grants monthly in the province with its 11 million inhabitants. A sample was also selected for interviews with recipients to establish their views on the effectiveness of the implementation of the policy. The study found that the child support grant is not implemented effectively due to corrupt practices and administrative challenges experienced by the distributing agency, resulting in wasteful expenditure and non-payment to potential recipients. It is proposed that the existing administrative system should be reformed and that a zero-tolerance approach to non-compliance with prescribed procedures should be adopted by government. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
Congratulations. I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Administration on Richard Mduduzi Mtetwa with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Jeffrey Ian Isaacson, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Dr. Komerki with a thesis titled the relationship between personal cultural orientations and consumer decision-making styles through consumer involvement, prepared under my supervision and with Professor van Heerden as co-supervisor. In his thesis, the promovendus investigated the relationship between individual-level cultural orientations and decision-making styles through consumer involvement by applying each of the three interrelated components of the antecedents, involvement, consequences model. The study employed survey research using an online self-administrative questionnaire. In addition to the analysis of descriptive data, the results of the research were analyzed using partial least squares structural equation modeling. Overall, the results indicated that consumer involvement plays a role in both personal cultural orientations and consumer decision-making styles. This role is especially evident in the individual-level relationship between a masculine cultural orientation and brand loyal as well as brand conscious decision-making. In order to be more effective, marketers are encouraged to tailor their activities to take into account not only the overall levels of consumer involvement associated with a particular product or brand, but also the different types of consumer involvement as well. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on Jeffrey Ian Isaacson.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Commerce on Jeffrey Ian Isaacson with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Adi Barnard, who is compliant with the requirements for the degree PhD in Industrial and Organization Psychology with a thesis titled The Application of Social Action Survey 2, SAS 2, in the South African context, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, The Application of Social Action Survey 2 in the South African context, the promovendus investigates generalized beliefs on the individual level and the generalizability in a South African context. A literature review was conducted which assisted in the development of a parsimonious SAS model. The data were analyzed through descriptive statistics and a confirmatory factor analysis by means of latent variant modeling. With this study, the promovendus indicated that beliefs factors are the same and have the same factor structure across males and female groups. It also provided insight into the belief's ability to predict personality characteristics. Specific belief items were identified that contributed towards the model misfit and indicated the direction for the development and improvement of more cultural relevant SAS model. Mr. Chancellor, I request that you refer the degree to Adi Barnard. Thank you.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Adi Barnard with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Keith James Fairhurst, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy, with a thesis titled Investigating Funding, Board Composition, and Turnaround Potential of Private Firms in Financial Distress, which he prepared under my supervision. In the thesis, the promovendus investigated financial distress as a boundary to agency theory-based corporate governance. The choices of shareholders in respect of board composition and the relationship between board composition and the external sources of funding were also investigated. Additionally, the influence of management members who are also shareholders on turnaround potential was considered. Using secondary data from business rescue plans of private-owned firms, correlation of multiple hierarchical regression analysis were carried out to test the research model's hypotheses. The analysis allowed the promovendus to articulate a definition for the agency cost of distressed debt, of course adding to the theory of agency cost. The promovendus was also able to advance arguments in respect of the influence shareholders who are managers and the board of directors are likely to have on the turnaround potential of the private firms that have crossed the boundary of financial distress and have entered the zone of insolvency. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Keith James Fairhurst with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Rebone Prela Ethel Kabo, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled A Framework of Social Interaction Dynamics within Temporary Project Teams in a South African Context, prepared under the supervision of Professor Yvonne du Plessis and with me as co-supervisor. In her thesis, the promovenda developed a framework of social interaction dynamics that captures social processes of temporary project teams in the diverse South African context using a mixed method, sequential research design. The quantitative phase of the study examined the psychometric properties of the cognitive style index and an adapted social team social interaction measure. The first phase results suggest that both the cognitive style index and the project team social interaction measure had limitations for its applicability across race groups. There were significant positive relationships between an analytical cognitive style and social interaction and between social interaction and team performance. The qualitative phase results confirmed the constructs tested in the first phase, but with differences in emphasis across the project life cycle. An extended framework is proposed with additional factors including collaboration, trust, competencies, and non-technical behavioral teamwork. The study contributes to the field of project management by acknowledging that projects are not behaviorally neutral and that the proposed framework can be applied in practice to determine optimal team composition. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Rebone Prela Ethel Kabo with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations, ma'am.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Oliver Kapepa, who has complied with the requirements for the degree. Doctor of Philosophy in Entrepreneurship, with a thesis titled Exploring the Nature and Extent of Entrepreneurial Intensity in the Insurance Industry in a Hyperinflation Zimbabwe 2000 to 2010. The preventers explored the entrepreneurial intensity in insurance companies in Zimbabwe and how such intensified corporate entrepreneurship and activity was responsible for the survival and the revival of insurance industry during the post-inflationary environment. Relevant literature was explored, which during the post-hyperinflationary environment then eventually contributed to the revival of these companies. This was followed by constructing and administering the questionnaire to gauge how various stakeholders perceived the form and nature of entrepreneurship in response to the prevailing economic challenges, where inflation at a certain point in time was 1,000%. Predominantly using then ANOVA, complemented by such tests as the t-test and chi-square, data was collected, and the study revealed that whether consciously or unconsciously, most companies in the insurance sector resorted to some form of entrepreneurship in a quest to survive the inflation, albeit the varying degrees and then frequency. Mr. Chancellor, I request to you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Oliver Kapepa with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Leslie Seth Kigapola, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy in Labour Relations Management, with a thesis titled Trade Union Service Level and Member Satisfaction, prepared under my supervision. In his thesis, Trade Union Service Level and Member Satisfaction, the promovendus investigated the challenges faced by trade unions that as service providers must give employees enough reason to become attracted to them as members and also to remain members. The study indicated that even though the majority of the respondents is satisfied with the performance and effectiveness of the unions, trade unions should also strive to ensure that they not only offer services and benefits of exceptional quality, but also that they attend to the members' queries promptly and efficiently. Enhancing the quality of service and benefits will increase members' satisfaction, which in turn will have a positive effect on members' loyalty. Recommendations are made for trade unions on how to improve service, attract more members, and retain the support of their current members. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Leslie Seth Kigapola with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Ignatius Gerardus Creon, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy in Organizational Behavior, with a thesis titled The Moderating Role of Cultural Group on the Relationships Between Job Fit, Managerial Leadership, Job Satisfaction, and Effective Commitment, prepared under my supervision and with Professor Karel Stans as co-supervisor. In his thesis, the promovendus investigated the moderating role of cultural group on the relationships between job fit and managerial leadership as predictor variables, and job satisfaction and effective commitment as criterion variables. The study was conducted in a large retail bank and found that cultural groups strongly moderated the relationships between the predictor and criterion variables. Organizational culture can be viewed to have at least two extreme individual psychosocial paradigms, with one extreme being Eurocentric and the other being Afrocentric. These paradigm differences could explain the differences between cultural groups in the strength of the relationships between job fit and managerial leadership as predictor variables, and job satisfaction and effective commitment as outcome variables. The results suggest that management theory and practice in South Africa need to include collectivistic values and norms in human resource policies and practice. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Ignatius Gerhard Kriel with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Christelle Smith, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy in Accounting Sciences, with a thesis titled The Mandatory Adoption of International Financial Reporting Standards and Financial Statement Comparability, South African Evidence, prepared under my supervision and with Professor Madeleine Stichling as co-supervisor. In her thesis, the promovenda investigated whether there was a change in the comparability of the financial statements of South African firms after the mandatory adoption of international financial reporting standards and the likely sources of any such changes. South African firms' financial statements were compared to two different groups using two different measures of comparability. With the study, the promovenda found a global increase in comparability, suggesting that market changes unrelated to the adoptions of international financial reporting standards are a likely source of the increase. Despite this, further evidence was consistent with comparability benefits for South African firms with the adoption of international financial reporting standards, even though accounting quality was largely unaffected. This evidence suggests network benefits and the label change to international financial reporting standards as likely sources of increased comparability. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Christelle Smith with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Christian Kakesi Tipoi, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Philosophy Doctor in economics with a thesis titled On the Impact of Exchange Rate Misalignment on Economic Growth Using Homogeneous Emerging Market Economies, under my supervision and the co-supervision of Dr. Zerian. In his thesis, the promovendus analyzed the impact of exchange rate misalignment on economic growth and the transmission channels for a sample of homogeneous emerging economies. The promovendus used various estimators to address some of the issues identified in the literature. He found that a rise in relative productivity tends to depreciate the real effective exchange rate. A plausible explanation stems from the fear of appreciation that characterizes most emerging economies, as central banks tend to intervene to avoid or postpone exchange rate appreciation. Using an index of misalignment, he found that small to moderate undervaluation tends to spur growth, while large undervaluation hinders it. The latter negative impact is exacerbated by the presence of large foreign currency denominated liabilities. He shows that exchange rate undervaluation granger causes economic performance both in the short and long run. Undervalued currencies move resources from non-tradables to tradables. This renders the tradable sector more profitable, and thanks to some form of learning by doing, this transfer of resources increases productivity and at a later stage, economic performance. The findings are robust to different misalignment indexes. Moderate undervaluation is therefore a powerful strategy for growth, especially for emerging market economies. However, if foreign liabilities are too high, undervaluation exacerbates foreign debt and leads to lower growth. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to refer the degree Philosophy Doctor on Christian Kakese Tipoy.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Christian Kakase Tipoy with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Johannes Chepa, who has complied with all the requirements for the degree Doctor in Philosophy in Financial Management with a thesis titled Corporate Governance and Financial Performance, a study of companies listed on Johannesburg Stock Exchange, prepared under my supervision and with Professor H. Wolmerans and Dr. Edith Toy as co-supervisors. In his thesis, the promovendus investigated the impact of corporate governance on financial performance in the wake of corporate governance reforms and the 2007-2008 global financial crisis. To this end, a sample of 90 companies from the 5 largest South African industries covering a 13-year period from 2002 to 2014 were examined through the use of a generalized least square estimator. 3 important points emerged from the study. Firstly, corporate governance structures operated differently in crisis and non-crisis periods. By and large, some corporate governance attributes had a positive impact on financial performance during non-crisis periods and provided a hedging mechanism during crisis periods. Secondly, accounting returns appeared to be in favor of the stewardship theory, while market returns seem to favor agency and resource dependence theories. Thirdly, in respect of industry dynamics, findings concluded that the relationship between corporate governance and financial performance differed from industry to industry as well as from period to period. The outcomes of the study imply that South African companies may possibly enhance their performance by implementing good corporate practices based on their unique circumstances. The results also pointed to an important issue, which was a need to evaluate corporate governance not only in stable periods but also during turbulent times, and to evaluate the ability to perform effectively in such different conditions. Crafting a robust corporate governance structure well in advance of the crisis could be helpful. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to confirm the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Johannes Tsipa with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Geagte kanselier, die volgende kandidaat het voldoen aan al die vereistes vir die graad Magister Koemeltjie in bedryfssielkunde. Corneille Booysen. Katinka Klek. Louise Coetzee. Maria Oosthuizen. Alice Slobbert with distinction. Cammy Smith. Julian Turner with distinction. Karen Viljoen. In economics, Mushaping Lipoko. In financial management sciences, Mohamed Boulat. Matobolo Letepa. Tane Tapai with distinction. In statistics, Ken Jung Yu with distinction. He also received the Statumet Prize for the most exceptional student in the master's program in the Department of Statistics. Mr. Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Philosophy in Labour Relations Management, Maleu Legale. In taxation, Lulani Baloy. Jacqueline Kilani with distinction. Stanley Makwanda. In economics, Jitesh Malilal. In entrepreneurship, Cordelia Kunaka. In interne auditkunde, Lisa Botha with distinction. Carla Ferreira. Jacobus Fourie. Barry Heisey. Cecile Lowe. Mutelo Matsiva Handila. Joyce Mbongo. Nosipu Nkobo. Gregory Paulse. Takane Rampai. Ingrid Ravenscroft. Dirk Strydom. Teresa van Wijngaard. In communication management, Mirja Cruikshank. Esmerantia Cupido. In business management, supply chain management, Aurelia Manya. In public policy, Vuyukazi Nkebe. Nolutandu Sikode. In accounting, fraud risk management, Osikal Dondo. Murambeli Sadiki. Sherika Vital. Mr. Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Public Administration. Nicolas Moletsane. Zingiza Tentleni. Mr. Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Public Administration. Douglas Banda. Itai Shimuzoro. Cleopatra Lamini. Zintle Kubeka. Tabang Malapela. Otusitse Letebele. Kenzani Mabasa. Gladys Mashlangu. Tebogo Molepane. Manotu Muruti. Mpo Mushwete. Lefuno Nemut Zihadi. Maria Westhuizen. Selo Ramakau. Shomani Sekula. Randolph Sibande. Joseph Villani. Geagte kanselier, die volgende kandidaat het voldoen aan al die vereistes vir die graad baccalaureus administrationis honoris in publieke administrasie en public administration management. Taiwoon Mohammed Altamash. Mr. Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Commerce Honours in Economics, Mwemwe Mahoma. In Informatics, Mpo Makutsuane. Ian Michaud with distinction. Matome Sekaolelo. Aswing Hangwizi Sigama. In agricultural economics, Lokabia Mbetsi. In statistiek, Berno Verwey. Sorry, that's also in agricultural economics and landbou economy. My apology. Geagte kanselier, die volgende kandidaate het die voldoen aan al die vereistes vir die graad, Bachelor of Administration in International Relations en internasionale verhoudinge. Nonu Maimane. Ntabiseng Motau. In public management and specifically public administration, Morutuyane Mahloko. Tabu Manele. Bungu Matebula. Tembeni Midlalosi. In public management, Sarah Likuehembe La Misoma. Kamogelo Manjuho. Givenson Nkosi. Geagte kanselier, die volgende kandidaat het voldoen aan al die vereistes vir die graad, Baccalaureus Komelkie in voorsieningskettingbestuur, François Kreinhou. Johannes Maria. Frans Olivier. Nati Tembele. Mr. Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree, Bachelor of Commerce, Andrew Beckel. Tenyuku Boshuele. Mukhtar Kasim. Yamiku Shisale. Tabile Kabanyane. Mpo Letswalu. Rufiwa Makumisani. Jandrey Rademeyer. Laiken Sebuyi. Simpewe Tusi. James Viljoen. In agribesigheidsbestuur, Tessa Burger. Agatha Makombore. Willem Wolfhard. In investment management, Anton Kutsie. In marketing management, Hon Chan. Simone Erasmus. Zakir Kala. Noluthando Mjadu. Palesa Mulefi. Christy Muller. Kayaletu Nukonda. In econometrie, Christine van Zyl. In entrepreneurship, Daniela Toth. Chad Fentel. In finansiële bestuurswetenskappe, Stefan van Wyk. In financial sciences, Zubaida Albi. Willem Baard. Zelda Kutzel. Lesego Mokwane. Fuluwezani Netavhani. Ipfi Nechi Zahulu. Nombusu Ntuli. Gudani Ramanyimi. Luiso Vuyiya. Matthew Wilcox. In informatics, Tyrone Cryshaw Hall. Klaal Gommel. Wilhelmina Makufa. Refilwe Maseng. Mustafa Punyani. Magiel van Wyk. In Communication Management, Pendile Vilakazi. In Human Resource Management, Londiwe Dinga. Brandu Trepaniotis. Anna Pretorius. In Business Management, Ayodi Dada. William Eibers. Connell MacDonald. Letabu Mogolejo. Reino Müller. Omokalani Nkuna. Calby Pastel. Justin Perry. Alexandra von Baardeleben. In law, Siyasanga Yam Yam. Kamogele Letuala. Kwandile Mankazana. Nsovu Mashisane. Palesa Matlala. Timbalani Mimosa. Ritabile Motswane. Christine Pretorius. Rochelle van der Linde. Bernard van Straten. In Accounting Sciences, Samira Abdullah. Steven Lambrecht. Mapula Modiba. Marina Mutlabi. Fanalesi Bonge Mwandla. Kerabilwe Nonyana. Vedant Parag. Sansha Pietri. Kesaubaka Tahe. Divan van Wyk. Zamalaba Zimba. In statistics, Kalatane Motiane. En toerismebestuur, Stefanus Naudee. Vice Chancellor, this completes the Economic and Management Sciences students. Gradiandi, I'm now handing over to Professor Klein.
Mr. Chancellor, the supervisors will now introduce the doctoral candidates.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Yusuf Kiwala, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor in Philosophy with a thesis entitled Antecedents and Enablers of Supply Chain Value Creation, a Perspective of SME Participation in Local Procurement in Uganda. In this study, the researcher investigated how small and medium enterprises involved in local procurement create value in supply chains. The study investigated supply chain value creation by testing 3 indicators of supply chain value creation. That is entrepreneurial competencies, supply chain collaboration, and supply chain trust, as well as the moderating effects of supply chain value creation. Results from a cross-sectional survey of 294 respondents in the construction, furniture and fitting, food processing, and agricultural sectors were utilized to test the hypothesized relationships. The study employed factor analysis and structural equation modeling to conduct the analysis. The research findings demonstrate how managers who trust customers on basis of transparency and reliability, by contrast, trust suppliers on the basis of operational flexibility, fairness, and market credibility. The study contributes to the existing body of knowledge by separating out and defining the key competencies most important in the management of local supply chains. They are opportunity competence and commitment competence. In addition, the study illuminates how trust increases the value suppliers create for the local firm. Finally, by demonstrating that cost and goal congruence are not key value drivers, the research provides compelling evidence for why managers should instead focus on developing competencies, facilitating the flow of information, and building trust in order to optimally benefit the local supply chains. Mr. Chancellor, I request you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Yusuf Kiwala with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce to you Christoffel Friedrich Prinsloo, who's complied with the requirements of the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Investigating the Influence of Individual Value Systems and Risk Propensities on Decision-Making Quality in Value-Clashing Circumstances, prepared under my supervision. In the thesis, the promovendus investigated the influences of personal value systems and risk propensities on managerial decision-making quality during value clashes in the context of an intervention. Decision-making quality was assessed through the integrative complexity measure among 460 South African managers faced by 3 value clashing scenarios and social relational framing interventions. The quantitative analysis revealed the relationship between the value segments of self-enhancement and openness to change and higher quality decision-making. Social risk-taking, especially when reframed, related to better decision-making too. The qualitative analysis supported these findings and hinted at additional context-specific decision motivators. The study contributes to an integrated view of decision-making literature, demonstrating the application of integrative complexity as a measure of decision quality, and introduces new perspectives on how value orientations, risk proclivities, and scenario framing relate to decision-making quality. It holds practitioner value for assessing decision-making abilities and the use of scenario reframing for improved decision-making quality. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Christoffel Frederick Prinsloo with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, I introduce you Anthony Tibaingana, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Extending the Theory of Storage to a Perishable Commodity in an Underdeveloped Market, a case of Uganda, prepared under my supervision and with Professor Godswill Makumbe as co-supervisor. In his thesis, the promovendus investigated the role of storage options in influencing smallholder maize farmers' marketing margin and explored farmers' own perceptions of storage as business strategy to increase their share of maize marketing margin. The possibility of extending the theory of storage to underdeveloped markets was evaluated. The different storage types influenced the share of the realized marketing margin. The theory can be extended to underdeveloped markets. The framework developed provides information critical to guiding decision makers on solving the challenges of household storage. The framework offers details of both essential storage, remediation for smallholder maize farmers, and the drawbacks of theory of storage relevant to maize marketing transactions in this context. Mr. Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy on Anthony Tibai Ngana with all associated rights and privileges. Congratulations.
Mr. Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree of Master of Business Administration. Brian Kekana. Golden Kumalo. Milisane Manaswe. Arinyo Mangoma. Sipo Mtombeni. Carol Seddon. Sindiswe Shabalala. Mr. Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the postgraduate diploma in business administration. Letsia Mabale. Dishen Maharaj. Shifiwa Vanwata. Renel Yankana Mohan. Mr. Chancellor, that concludes the candidates who are presented from the Gordon Institute of Business Science. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's congratulate ourselves on the success of this ceremony this morning. I think it has gone exceptionally well. May we ask the graduates to applaud the parents, the relatives, and everybody for giving them support. Well, congratulations on my side to everybody. It has been a great day. Congratulations to the members of faculty for another very successful year, and to the graduates, and the best wishes as you go out to serve, even if you are serving. Now that you have obtained a senior degree, I'm sure your expectations in terms of what you should achieve have changed. So we wish you everything of the best. We have now come to the end of the proceedings. Before we close, I wish to invite all present for refreshments afterwards in front of this hall. You are requested to stand for the singing of the national anthem and to remain standing until the assembly has been dissolved and the academic procession has left the auditorium. Please stand.
Malupa Ganisu, Kondo Royo.
By the power vested in me, I hereby dissolve this congregation of the University of Pretoria. Thank you very much.
Gaudeamus igitur,